Hey guys, welcome back to BriMyselfAndEye. So today I'm going to be doing a much different video for my channel. I did a video similar to this, the hashtag Dear Me challenge, last March, but since it is, once again, Women's History Month, I wanted to do another video with a reflection of inner beauty and focusing on that kind of topic. And what inspired me was watching Jackie, Anya, and Ingrid Nilsen's Ambassador for Change with the UN and YouTube projects that they're both a part of. So congrats, I'm very excited to see where that goes. But anyway, it got me thinking, what would, if I was asked by YouTube or the UN or anyone to be a change ambassador for gender equality, what would be my focus? Who would, what issue do I feel like isn't being met or addressed or talked about? And one that is near and dear to my heart as of the last going on 5 years is women in the military, but specifically military spouses. A lot of the issues brought up by the other change ambassadors outside of the military for the YouTube and UN project were based on minority groups that need more representation. Out of all of the United States, less than 1% of our population serves in our military. Think about that for a minute. Less than 1% defend the freedoms of the rest of the country. And they're not all married, and they're not all male. So think about that number is even smaller for the women who are military spouses. It's a very small number, and it's a very tight-knit group. There's a saying, it's never really goodbye in the military, it's see you later, and that is completely true. So this is my minority group, if you will, that I want to shed some light on and bring awareness to the general public and to military spouses and the military in general. I think that both are very important. Women who serve in the military, I think that's something that we do need to assess, and gender equality in the military is a huge ongoing issue. We've made some strides, but we still have a lot more to go. But speaking from a military spouse perspective, I know more about that side of it than I do being in the military and being a military spouse. Those women I don't even know how to show my respect to. I don't know how you do it. You guys are my heroes. But really driving home on what it means to be a military spouse as a woman, and what the conversation I feel like should be, or maybe should change to, and maybe some solutions to issues that I think that we're currently facing and dealing with as military spouses. There's a lot of stereotypes with being a military spouse or even dating someone in the military. And when I say military spouse, I hate this because I've been the military girlfriend and it's annoying, but I mean significant other. Girlfriends are included. I don't care. If you don't have someone on Christmas, it doesn't matter if they're your husband or your boyfriend. It sucks to be alone on holidays, period. So I'm including anyone who's in a, committed relationship with a service member in our military. So just disclaimer there. So as a military spouse, there are a lot of stereotypes. I think that they need to be talked about, addressed, maybe understand why they're perceived that way by the rest of society or even amongst ourselves. So specifically, some of the things that I remember thinking before I was a military spouse, again, I have no prior history with the military. My family wasn't military, so I came in from total civilian world to military spouse world. So it was a little bit of a culture shock, to say the very least. But some of the things that I thought about the military spouses or significant others were, oh, it's so cool that they get a discount at American Eagle and stupid stuff like that. And it wasn't out of disrespect. It was honestly just a lack of awareness, and that's partly why I want to make this video, to kind of clear up a few things, address an issue that I feel like could be solved, and some ways I think we could go about doing. So besides getting military discounts, I always thought, wow, I could never do that. That's impossible. I don't know how they deal with that. That's crazy. And it is. And I don't know how I do it, or anyone that does it. Well, I do know. It's because I have an amazing support system, and, faith and God basically gets me through every deployment, every time of uncertainty. I don't know what I would do without having that. So there's a reason why the divorce rate is high in the military, because it is a lot of sacrifice and it is overwhelming. So that aspect of it being just too much, I can't internalize it or relate to it. That, or I heard even more negative stuff, which I never personally held that thought or belief, but I had heard the stereotypes of, oh, women only get married to the military so that they can have as many babies as they want for free, which BT dubs, that is not how it works. So, like, at all, you do not get paid more as a service member for each child that you get. No, there's dependent pay and housing, but that's it. There's the stereotype about, you know, people getting married to the military service members so they can have free health care. I don't know, I heard some really crazy, like, what? Oh, that and military wives like just don't want to work because they like to live off their husband's income or off of his career, which was kind of one that I wrestled with, because when I moved here and got married, I realized that it's about 50-50 of people that I know that hold jobs, and a lot of that is because they're full-time parents, because a lot of times as a military spouse you're a single parent, your significant other is gone a lot of the time. So that's another reason. Or being a military spouse in general has a lot of, it's just time consuming, it's a lot of hurry up and wait, it's hard to have a rigid schedule or rigid type of job with a lifestyle where you need to support someone who has a very unpredictable job, if that makes sense. Now, having been in the military as a spouse for, again, 5 years in May, there are a whole slew of new issues that I have seen that I would like to address, and they would be things that I would bring to the table if that were something that I was asked to do in the UN or any other respect. And I encourage you to make this kind of video too. It's very therapeutic, it gets you thinking, and it might actually make a difference in your local area. You have no idea who could be watching, so always keep that in mind if you are putting content out there. You never know who you'll reach with it. It is extremely hard as a military spouse to not lose your identity to your husband's job or rank or position or whatnot. A lot of wives really love that and they wear their husband's rank, and you know, if that's your thing, you do you, boo. But I am not. I don't feel comfortable doing that. I never have been. I refuse to be defined by just a military spouse, just like a lot of stay-at-home moms refuse, you know, that title or other titles that are generally, there's some sort of negative or not good connotation put to it. So in that, it's made my life a little bit more difficult as a military spouse. I had a much harder time making friends, getting along with some of the leadership, you know, spouses involved as key spouses or whatnot. It's created some challenges, and it's also created some lifelong friends that we have that mutual feeling and we both get it. And every military spouse is different. Each have our own way of processing and dealing with the very challenging and strenuous demands, not even responsibilities, demands that the military makes on your life. The best advice I can give, just a side note, just respect how that person does their life. Like, don't try to judge them because they don't, you know, do deployments the same way that you do. Because that the minute you start to do that, and that's true of any kind of comparison, the minute you start comparing yourself to someone else, you lose your identity in that and not staying true to who you are. Another hard thing is there's a lot of talk about respecting the military wives or spouses' input, but there's still a lot more to learn for the nation and for the military leadership as a whole. Not just respect, but empathy. That's something in my test run of this, I kept saying respect, and I was like, I mean respect, but I also mean just straight up empathy. The way you talk to a military spouse as a military leader should be dealt with like you're talking to someone from the outside world, not someone that you're the boss of. And you are to their spouse, but adult to adult, human being to human being, there needs to be some level of mutual respect, and not just like, oh, I'm the military spouse, like, you know, I've got to be uptight. I feel like almost it should be a little bit of the other way around, because I feel like service members do what they do, sacrifice what they sacrifice because of their families and because of their support systems, whether that's girlfriends, best friends, whatever you have that you fight for or you come home for, that's why they do what they do. So if you support those entities, you are directly supporting the service member that goes over and defends our freedoms. There's a stigma with even being a dependent, and even the terminology. The issue I have with the military personally is it is based on some really outdated, antiquated, not effective terminology that is from like the 1940s and 50s that is still used today, and it's borderline offensive most of the time. But it being such a strong infrastructure and it's not very flexible, that's good for a war situation, but it's not good for humanizing the home front. And I think that that's a huge disconnect and misstep that a lot of leadership make when they get into that role in the military. I see that happen a lot, or I hear about it happening a lot. So that needs to be a conversation that we have. Can we go over training as an officer or as a leader of any grade, how to address a military spouse, how to talk to them, how to email them, how to text them, how to treat them. But there should be a general respect and empathy that occurs more often than I see it occurring now. One area that can be challenging as a military spouse is respecting yourself, because there are going to be times at some point that you may just be a military spouse. You may not have a job yet. You may have just PCS'd, or you may have been there for a while, but you know, his job is so like sporadic, it may be too demanding depending on what his function is at the time. You may not want to work. You may want a wife, stay at home. That's fine. And I feel like all of those things should be respected, but I don't feel like that they are. I feel like in theory they're admired or like glorified, but they're not actually respected or shown empathy in the way that would be effective to support us in general. And I don't know if it's a lack of awareness for the military's sake, but for the society's sake, I know that I was unaware of some of the demands and the choices you have to make. For instance, if I were a wife of another husband that wasn't in the military and his job, let's just say it wasn't working out anymore and we needed to find a new job, find a new position, or train a line of work, and he needed to quit and do something else, or we wanted to move and do something else. If my husband did that, there is punishment for that, including jail time. Like, if you don't fulfill your contract with the military, you could go to jail. Like, that's, I didn't know that until I got into it, and I was like, oh, it's pretty serious. So it's a level of commitment that I wish that the military would keep in mind when addressing the spouses, because being in the military as a spouse, it is a choice. I don't think that spouses are victims of the military. It's definitely a choice. You choose to marry someone most of the time. It's not something that they forced on us. We made that choice, just like the service member took the oath and made the choice to join. However, I feel like there's a level of respect that should be imparted upon, and empathy that should be distributed among those who make a covenant to be a support system for the home front, for the service members who are giving their all, bringing the fight and coming home and making our country as safe as it possibly can be. But sadly, it's not. And I've had good cases of leadership, and I've had really less advantageous representations of leadership, and it's been really hard to go back and forth. That's another thing. As a military spouse, every 2 years, your husband's boss is going to change. That's just the fact of the military. They do a change of command. That's just kind of the fluctuating system of the military. So I've had some good ones, and I've had, unfortunately, some really negative experiences, and it really wore down on who I was and my identity as a woman. Being treated like an accessory or not an equal is a real problem, and I think it's not effective style of leadership, or it's not an effective style of supporting one another as military spouses. There's a lot of stress in the military spouse community, so you want to develop healthy support systems within the military. And that's another thing. I think that if military spouses showed more empathy and respect for what they do contribute to their husband's life and the nation's lifestyle by our sacrifice, that would be the first step in helping. Secondly, I think that we should support each other and respect and show empathy towards other military spouses. There should be no need for any of military spouses tearing down another spouse. I don't care what rank you are, what level you are. That is another issue that I wish would stop, because it's, of all the people that we cannot afford to have discount us, each other can't be one of them, because if we do it to ourselves, then it gives permission to everyone else to do it. Another thing, like I said, is just the empathy and respect from the communities and cities that we live in. It's really nice to say, you support the military, and I'm sure that most people feel like they do, but to put that support in action, which, faith without works is dead. I feel similarly. I'm more of a show me person, not tell me. It can be hard to take it seriously when you're left in the lurch when it really counts. So, even small things like if your neighbor's lawn, if you know their husband's deployed, help them out with their lawn. Like there's simple things like that that people may not think to do, because they may have their kids inside the house screaming and crying, and so don't judge them if their lawn is a wreck while their husbands are gone. So, it's just stuff like that. It starts really, really, really small and basic, and it is very obtainable. And things like that are how you can show respect to military spouses and the service members. Like I said, not just lawn care, but that was just an example. But if you see someone that may need help, offer help. Because I guarantee you, out of all the minorities that I know of, the last group of women to ask for help will be a military spouse. We don't do it because we're just expected to just handle it, just do it. And it's almost a pride thing, and it's hard to break down that pride and say, you know what, no, I wasn't meant to do this by myself. I need help, or I need assistance with this, or whatnot, or I just need to vent or cry or talk to someone about it. Don't be afraid, as a military spouse, don't be afraid to ask for and get that help in whatever capacity that you need that. I truly believe that the help is out there, but we have to look for it, and we have to be diligent about that. Yeah, if you're a military spouse watching this, hopefully any of this is ringing true for you, or you can identify or relate to any of this. If not, I'm not pretending to speak for all military spouses in general. That's just the topic that I'm covering, because that's a minority group that I identify with as a woman. So if you've got a separate issue, leave me a comment down below. Let's have a fluid, respectful conversation about it, because I would love to hear your thoughts. But I also want to show and tell you, you're not alone. I respect what you do. You are very important. Your job is important. Your title is invaluable. There's no words to define it, and just keep doing what works for you and your significant other. Don't try to cope with or handle the stresses of the military like anyone else, because it won't ever work. So respect your voice, respect your own thoughts and opinions, and that may not make you popular or the ideal military spouse. And by ideal, I mean like the 1950s, yes, and leave it to be their beaver family, which is not the way it is anymore. It's funny because it's true still. It's still seen that way and applied to modern day society, because right now they're still a little bit outdated. But yeah, so get involved, ask for help, own your voice. This is the hashtag for this UN YouTube ambassador for change and gender equality is hashtag own your voice. And I think that that's something that military spouses, you are your own and number one advocate. Aside from your significant other, you are it. And so advocate for what you need. Advocate for what you would like to see change or be different. My specific thing is just between leadership or leadership within spouse groups and respect and empathy among those two. That's specifically my thing. And respect and empathy for military spouses and the nation that we sacrifice our loved ones for. Let me know what yours, what your specific thing is in the comments below. Share this with someone that you need to hear it, or maybe with a if you're a military spouse and you have a civilian family member that maybe doesn't understand certain things that maybe I've highlighted, feel free to share this with them and just lovingly make people aware of the situation. So I know this was kind of all over the place. I wasn't sure how to even tackle this issue, but I felt like in my splachna, which is like a Greek or Hebrew word for your gut, and it's mentioned in the Bible. I love you from like the innards of my being, but it's something that to me is that important. It's like my splachna. I learned that from Beth Moore. I love her, she's so funny. It's something I feel very strongly about, and for those of you in my life that I know in person that have shown me respect and empathy and support, you have no idea. You have no idea how much that support is appreciated, and that includes fellow military spouses that show respect for themselves and others. That goes farther than you will ever know, and it has gotten me through unspeakable hardships, and I would love to see that increased, and I'd like to see that more readily shown to everyone as a military spouse, not just isolated incidents of support. So again, thank you. I will never know how to repay you. It means the world, and it helps me get through, you know, a first and second wedding anniversary alone, and you know, other things like that that are hard to even put a value on. But knowing that there's people out there that don't have to care. They don't have to, but they do. I encourage that. Keep going. You're making the issues that I'm talking about, you are the solution to that. So, you know, keep it up, keep doing it. We need it, and I hope that we can all share ideas and causes and minority groups or whatever that would promote gender equality in the military or outside of, and not just America, but worldwide. This is a worldwide conversation that we are having, and let me know down below what your thoughts are, if you got anything from this. And yeah, that's all I have. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video. Bye! So now that my voice is completely gone, that completes this January, February monthly favorites, if you will. And yeah, let me know what you've been loving.